All right, my friends, get ready for another powerful interview in the Strengths of Diamonds experience. I have an amazing one for you. This is someone who, in this interview, you're going to see somebody who is very powerful in a simple direction or a singular direction, right? But what you're going to discover in this interview is how can we be singular focused on a certain thing that allows us to be all things, right? Like, for example, if you've got a lot of relationship building strengths and you're wondering, how the heck am I supposed to influence and get things done and be creative with a bunch of relationship building strengths? See, that's the thing that a lot of people kind of go through this process thinking is a bad thing. What you're going to get from this interview is how being singular focused, or in this case, there's two focuses, but really singular focus, which is to be productive, and how that desire allows you, this person, the opportunity to be everything for everybody. So without any further ado, enjoy this amazing interview with DoTERRA Diamond Brooke Elia. Enjoy. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing interview of the Strengths of Diamonds experience. My friends, I have a very valuable person here in front of you, somebody who I've connected with many times. And I'm just going to get right to it. I'm not going to do a whole lot of lead up to this, except for one thing. I've had a chance to coach some of the most powerful people in doTERRA. And this person is really just another one of those amazing people. And I can't say enough about how, the value of rank advancing in doTERRA, because it brings amazing people like this into your life. So without any further ado, my friends, I'm going to introduce the amazing, the wonderful Brooke Ella. Did I pronounce that right?
Elia, but
Elia.
Yeah.
Okay, Elia. I've been messing it up all the time. So sorry.
Everybody does. You're fine.
Brooke, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful.
Same. I'm super grateful for this opportunity.
You bet. All right. So, Brooke, can you let everybody know real quick before we kind of pull this train out of the station? You're on Instagram, and you're on a few places. Am I correct?
I'm on Instagram mostly under Hippie Lawyer Mom.
Okay, Hippie Lawyer Mom. So we're gonna hear that story. I want to hear that story. You've told it to me, but I love it, and I think it's important for people to hear your origin story, if you will. But Brooke, and you're Diamond, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Brooke is Diamond. So, Brooke, if you could take a minute and share with people a little bit about, just briefly on your doTERRA story, because I think it's really cool, the whole hippie lawyer mom thing. Mm-hmm. And then kind of transition into your introduction to strengths and what's it been like since. And I'm looking forward to this because I want everybody to hear how not all of us just totally love strengths. I certainly didn't when it was first introduced. But go right ahead, Brooke, and let everybody know who you are.
All right, I'm going to do my best to not be a lawyer and talk forever, and I'll keep this succinct. So okay. I was introduced to doTERRA 7 years ago by a best friend of mine. At the time, I was a full-time practicing attorney, and I also managed my own law firm. So I was super busy. I was just looking for something to help my daughter. She asked me multiple times to do the business. I said, no, I have no time for that. I have no time for that. And as I started using more doTERRA's products and, the whole thing, I started researching, started making our own deodorants, things like that. So my family started making fun of me, just in jest. I'm like, oh, check out this new soap I made or deodorant. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're like a hippie, you're a lawyer, you're a mom. And I was like, you're absolutely right. So I still wasn't doing the business, but I had a lot of people asking me questions because I was naturally sharing. So I created a blog where I started putting all of my information out there. So when people came to me, I could kind of redirect. And then over time, I'm like, wow, I'm spending a lot of money. Maybe I do want to share oils. And flash forward, here we are doing doTERRA now for 7 years. Right. And I was first introduced to strengths a few years ago through doTERRA at a leadership event. And I think it was maybe before we took the test, we showed up, they gave us stickers that went on our badge. And I was thinking, I don't have time for this, right? At this point, I'm a silver in doTERRA doing a business I never intended to do. I practice law full time. I'm a mom. I run another business. I don't have time to focus on something else, right? So I continue building both businesses, and I get to a point in my doTERRA business where I was stuck and I couldn't get past gold. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why I'm doing all the things I did to get me here. And I started doing some more personal development. I had a really good account manager. And then at that time, I'm like, well, let me look a little bit more into what strengths are all about. And then I started diving into it. And then I came into your group when you first started your group. And my like passion grew, and now I like love strengths, and we use it all the time on my team. Swear by it.
That's awesome. And yeah, the early days of my group. So
Yeah.
and Brooke, I'm gonna assume you know this, but for everyone to understand, I'm an activator. And activators tend to just kind of do things, even though there's no structure, there's no even direction.
Just
And
get
so
to work.
when I started my community, it was like I'm starting the community to find out what the community is supposed to be, and so you were in there in the beginning or in early.
Yes.
It was in the beginning, or was it early? Right in the beginning.
Oh, yes.
Founders Club. All right, right on. Cool. Yeah, we'll have swag soon. I promise.
Yeah.
We've got a big list. It was 1,000 people eventually before I said, okay, no more founders groups now. It's,
Yes.
well, right on. And I'm so glad that you swear by it. I'm curious, and I ask everybody this because I want everybody to understand that strengths is not about business. It's everything. Have you noticed with your like diving in with strengths when it comes to doTERRA that it kind of bled into your family, marriage, things like that?
Oh my gosh, it bled into all areas of my life. Once I really dove into and I started listening to Gallup too, they had a great podcast where they break down each strength. Started deep diving into my top 10, but not just my top 10, my bottom 5. It was like this light bulb went off. Just looking back in relationships or conflicts, things like that. Also, what motivated me became much more clear. And as far as both my law practice, doTERRA, and then so much that my husband and I just finished strengths-based marriage too. So no, we use strengths all the time. And I even had my kids take the Gallup like kids one where they get like 3 kind of general, just so raising them, I have an idea of where their natural gifts are and I can help feed it.
Right on. And I love that book. Gallup has obviously a library of books. Most of them are very dry. That one right there, and strengths-based parenting.
Oh, I get that one.
Yeah, those 2 books are my favorite. What I love, and I'm going to throw a little sneak thing on this one, Brooke. What I love about the strengths-based marriage book is it doesn't just help you with your marriage, but it's really like if you look at that book from a standpoint of how can I work best with my frontline qualifiers, like that relationship is in many ways a marriage. It's exactly a marriage except for obviously one little detail, but they're like that's a marriage. And so that strengths-based marriage book, like if you have your frontline qualifiers in mind when you're reading that book, it will resonate so perfectly. The strengths-based parenting book will obviously help you with your children, but also with your brand new, your brand new builders. You know what I mean? Like when you're bringing in new people into your community, it's like they're babies. You know what I mean? And what we want to do is raise these babies in their strengths. And so when you look at that book, it's for your kids and it's also for your new recruits, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
Those are my favorite. Those 2 books are my favorite of all the Gallup books. People ask me a lot, Eddie, should I read this one? I'm like, I kind of think my book's better, but the parenting and the marriage ones, awesome. I love those books. Okay, so let's get, what we're going to do is I have one more question.
Yes.
We're going to show your strengths in a bit. And so this is just kind of like a little teaser question before we go into your strengths, because I already know them. What I want you to do is, I'm curious from your standpoint, because obviously at the beginning you're like, I don't have time for this. So productivity is also an important thing for you.
Yes.
How would you say, because this is like the number one objection I get whenever I'm telling people, you got to take a strengths assessment, you got to dive into this and help other people do this. One of the biggest objections I get is it feels like it's a waste of time. It feels unproductive. From your standpoint, now that you've kind of made that transition, what's productive about having access to your strengths report and understanding it and putting in that time and effort?
Yeah. What I think about is I'm always thinking of ROI because I'm a business owner, right? And
Yes.
I like productivity. So if I'm going to do something, I like results right away. It's the way I work. And had I known back then that if I spent the time up front learning what my strengths were, I would have had so much more time that produced fruit rather than wasting so much time spinning my wheels. So the ROI, your return on investment, is huge in the beginning. If you spend the time to take your strengths test, get your report and really pull it apart and know, okay, this is what I do best, and then spend your time doing that, you're not frustrated. You're not stuck in a rut. You're not spinning your wheels. You're not looking everywhere else trying to do all the other things.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying that it's not as obvious upfront unless you focus on the fact that how unproductive not having it is.
Yes.
That's so true. Oh my gosh, is that true?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been coaching and supporting people, not just in our doTERRA business, but even in my own business over the years. And I've like come to the conclusion that like the goal is simply to help me and help other people to get results faster.
Yes.
And when you're thinking about working with other people, the mind reading that has to take place in that process is not only exhausting, but it's insanely unproductive.
Yes. Yes.
I'm so like when I'm thinking about doTERRA oils, I keep thinking, how did I survive without them for so long? So when I think about strengths, I'm like, how the heck did I coach people without strengths? I'm like constantly trying to guess where people are so I can help them be themselves. That's brutal. Okay, so that's really cool. And I'm glad you brought up ROI because that's the thing, right? What is the ROI on this?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get to your strengths. I'm excited. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down your strengths report. Okay. And sorry, okay, there's something I noticed, but I'm gonna hold off on it just yet. So we're gonna break down your strengths report. And what I want you to do, Brooke, is just kind of go into hold on one second. I just realized I forgot my drawing pad. Okay, give me a sec. All right. So anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to think about, as I'm breaking down your strengths report, I want you to think about how these strengths show up in your business. Anywhere in particular you feel, like you feel some energy to discuss, like whether it's training new people or it's recruiting new people, or it's developing your current leaders, or it's, developing customers, whatever, right? Anywhere in your life and your business where these show up. And we'll even take a minute and talk about some of the things you do. Okay, so let's take everybody through your strengths. Start with number 1.
Responsibility.
Okay, hold on. It takes like 3 years to write.
I know. It's like
okay.
One of the longest.
All right. Number 2.
Achiever.
Okay, number 3.
Learner.
Learner. Okay, number 4.
Discipline.
Okay, number 5.
Relator.
Okay, number 6.
Individualization.
Hold on. Everybody take a break. It's going to take a while for me to write this down. Individualization. Okay, number 7.
Competition.
One of my favorite. Oh my gosh, I love that strength. Number 8.
Analytical. I know I always joke I got to diamond on all the fun competitions.
That's true. All right, right on. And number 9.
Deliberative.
Oh my gosh. That's an R, I promise. Okay, number 10.
Strategic.
Strategic. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the domains, right? So we're going to look at what is Brooke's primary focus. What does Brooke want to make sure is honored with everything she does so she can move towards diamond, blue diamond, presidential diamond, and all that stuff going forward. And then while I'm doing that, Brooke, I want to focus on one strength in particular. Let's talk about, actually, I'm going to ask you to talk about 2 strengths, okay? So competition and analytical. All right, so what's wonderful about this conversation that we're about to have is you're going to talk about 2 strengths that are outside your top 5. Because Gallup spends so much time focusing on the top 5, I want people to see the value that they're missing when they do that. 7 and 8 are very, very useful strengths. For me, 7 and 8 is communication and competition, right? So, which is kind of cool because when you look at how you and I use competition, it's very different. Anyway, so to get to the point on these two, competition is generally, okay, and then I want you to kind of personalize it for you. Competition means you use the comparison of other people to fuel you to improve and to get better. And so the more you're around people who are slightly better than you, the more inspired you are to grow and push yourself. Just slightly better. If they're too far ahead of you, then people of high competition shut down because there's no way that we could quote unquote compete, right? And then analytical is being able to take data, facts, like what is proven, and they like to break it down and analyze it to find patterns, recognize what's going on, find stories, and so on to discover proof. People of high analytical would always say, show me the proof, right? Show me the data, show me the numbers, show me the facts. If you're going to come and try to convince me of something, prove it, right? So competition, again, comparison and proving data and facts. Put those two together and share with me what those mean to you. And then also, how do they show up in your doTERRA business?
Gosh, and it's so funny when I look at these top 10, if you were to ask me about any two, I would not talk about 7 and 8. I could tell you very easily where the others show up all the time in my business.
Yeah.
Competition, I feel like I go through seasons of it, and it could be me not using it. I'm not really sure because like you said, I focus a lot on my top 5 and I try to stay out of my bottom 5. But for sure, I am motivated when I am around other people who are farther along than I am.
Yeah.
I like seeing the possibility, and then I love taking information from them on how they got there, right?
Oh.
So that's probably my analytical pairing with my competition. So if someone's too far away, my strategic brain is like, oh, that's not reasonable, right? We need to that's too much information. We don't have time for that. But whoever's at the next step ahead, yes, I love it. Like, I want to be around you. I want to see what you're doing. And then I'm going to set my goals to be there. So I'm very goal oriented, and I don't do well when I don't have goals. So that also could be my competition, but I have to be in a space where I see people who are farther ahead, or I don't set goals.
Okay. I have to be in a space where I see people are further ahead, or I can't set goals. Okay. So what we got here is we've got 4 executing, 3 strategic thinking as the dominant, which means that you love to do everything in a way that honors your desire to first make sure things are done the right way, and then to think and create and to learn. And so when we're talking about competition, it's like if somebody's in front of you saying, okay, here's my expertise. I'm really good at this, that, and the other. What you want is the numbers, the data, and the facts of how they do it, so that you can look at it and then you can go, okay, is this something I can do, or I can do better when I'm doing it my way?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
I feel like, but how is the question I ask all the time. Okay, I
Do that
get it.
again?
How?
Okay, but how? I love that. Okay. So how does this show up in your business? And anywhere in again, right? I love that you want to show proof. So you can talk about even if you have any systems or processes that bring out this strength. Does it show up in your recruiting? Does it show up in your coaching or mentoring? Does it show up in your developing customers or whatever? You know what I mean?
Competition and analytical?
Yeah. I don't know that you have an answer for this, but I'm curious.
I don't know that I have an answer for competition. For analytical, for sure, because I do have systems in place for onboarding, for mentoring. I have for years. I work better that way with specific systems. For competition, I use it with my team, but not a lot of my leaders have competition, so I'm aware of that.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes I have to use it for myself, right? Where
Yeah.
I will, if I feel like I'm not growing in a certain area, then I'll seek out somebody in that area and again get information and then set goals for myself
Mhm.
so that I can up level.
Yeah.
But I don't know that like I said, I could see all other 8 strengths all the time in my business, but
Yeah.
not 7 and 8 as much.
So let's talk about competition a little bit more then.
Okay.
So there's 2 strengths that I've noticed. Here's a fun little, since you're a strategic thinker, you're going to like this.
Okay.
There's a lot of strengths that look very similar, like input and learn, right?
Yes.
These strengths are like when we're doing certain things, a person could have input or they could have learner. You can't really tell by looking at them. So like if a person is, let's say, watching a documentary or reading a book, you could sit back and go, oh, they have input. Another person goes, no, 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 they have learner. And there's really no way to tell. The only
Right.
person that could tell you is the person who's using it, because one is external and the other is internal, right? Learner is literally gathering information just for themselves to improve who they are. That's you.
Mhm.
A high input gathers information not just for themselves, but for other people as well. So it's very external. It's like, you know what, I'm going to gather this information. It might not be for me, but somebody I know might need it. So let me just think about it. Let me write it down. Let me catalog it. Let me put it on a shelf, right? So when we're talking about those 2 different strengths, there's an internal and external. So competition is an internal version of significance. Significance is an external measurement of making a difference. Competition is an internal measurement of making a difference. Like internally, I see another person, and the person that I'm competing with would never even know I'm competing with them. For example, let me ask you this, and this is a fun question. Do you ever get on the freeway, you see a car, and you kind of compete with them without them even knowing? Like you try to get to the next stoplight, or, you're kind of grinning. So maybe where, no, you don't do this. Okay.
No,
I find a lot of competition people do this, where they compete with people without those people even knowing that you're competing with them. Do
it's
you?
so it's so
Go ahead.
interesting because I feel like I have competition in certain areas of my life, but it doesn't show up everywhere.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure. It makes total sense. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like when you think about your team, do you ever think about like how your team could be measured with other teams?
Yes.
Okay, talk about that.
Yes. So I, from the get-go, have been, and it's probably also my responsibility, my number one, been very specific about my culture that I wanted to create. And looking around, I would look at other teams and be like, okay, I want my team to be more focused on community than that team is. I want to be known for someone who educates more. I want to be known for someone or a team that does, I don't know what else. Like education is really important. Supporting is really important. Being consistent is very important to me. So yes, I do look around, or as I talk to other leaders and they're like, oh, this is going on or this is going on, I like make mental notes like, okay, I don't want that to happen. So I better go do X, Y, and Z, or come up with a system or a plan so that we don't have that struggle or that reputation.
Okay, so think about that as like, say, like a fuel to the fire. You know what I mean? Or like on a steam locomotive, right? We're adding coal to the flames. So that data, that information, those things that you're noticing when you say I take a mental note, it's
Yeah.
literally like just adding fuel to the fire inside of Brooke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, you keep showing me people that aren't doing things the way that I would do them. Watch me go. Watch me get really energized and pumped up about making those things happen in my community.
Yes.
That makes sense?
It does. And when you said competition is internal, it also made me think that I always think I can be better, right? So I'm always striving to be a better leader, a better wife, a better mom, whatever that is. And I feel like that is something I also instill in my team, right? Is we weren't made to be here, right? Mediocrity has been a word lately on our team, right? We don't want to be mediocre. We don't want to be just like not growing in life and not evolving in life. So that maybe could be my competition too, of like us competing even against ourselves, like to be better today than we were yesterday.
Yeah, and so it kind of comes out in your tone when you're energized talking about these things. you're more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And thus your team connects closer to you, even if they're not like you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they see that they get the value of you. And then at that point, all you have to do is validate who they are, because they're obviously going to be different than you. And
this
so
I just had an example or a thought come to my mind
go
recently.
ahead.
And I would have never thought this is competition, but as we talk about it, so I was talking to my account manager. She called me randomly and I was like, why is she calling me? So I take the call and she's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I was looking at your numbers from last year and you typically, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like where this is going. She's like, you typically have a very, very high retention rate for a diamond. And I've noticed in the last 6 months that it's come down. And I was like, right. So I like, tell me what it is. So I like wrote it down and I got off the call and I was like, oh my gosh. So then I talked to my leaders and I was like, I had a call. Ladies, we can do better. We've done better. We can be better. And now as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's probably my competition.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like loving on that strength for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I've seen the value of competition for me is it's not about what people think competition is, where it's like hoping that other people drop so that you can win. That's not it at all. That's the opposite of competition. Competition is like, I need people to rise up so that I constantly am fueled to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I like that.
And so for me, just to kind of get it personal, there are people in the world that I watch constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch everything they do. I track everything they do. I want to know everything they do because it gives me fuel and it gives me a direction. Is what I want to do with my life. Like right now, I'm studying mythology a lot because I love seeing examples of people that I can compare myself to,
right,
in a very healthy way. And when those kind of people stop moving forward, okay, Brooke, I want you to think about this. When those people that you've been like kind of like holding on to and using as a fuel source, when those people quit or die, it's emotional. For me, when Kobe Bryant died, I cried like a baby because he was adding fuel to my fire.
Yeah.
Watching him do what he did, he went from a professional basketball player to winning an Academy Award. Like, that's amazing. That is massively inspiring. And when he died, I cried.
Right.
Because I didn't have that person to hold on to anymore. That hurt. Right. And so what I'm hoping you can do at this point is love on what this competition strength does for you. But then I want you to think about, how has this benefited your team?
Okay.
I want it, because and while you're thinking about that, just take a second on this. A lot of people have a very negative connotation with competition, even when they have it in their strengths, because they put the wrong label on it. Right. What I want people to see is, how do people that are in your circle benefit? And then we know it's a small circle because relator is up there, right? I've talked a lot about relators, so everyone really gets that about you, like relators keep the small circle. So how does the small, tight, really personal circle benefit from your competitive drive? I want you to and kind of give me some examples of what are some things you do in your teams that are sometimes fueled by your desire to do things better than other people.
It makes me think of, you hear that, and I don't know if I'm gonna say the saying right, but it's like, show me your circle, I'll show you your future, right? I think that's a very competition oriented quote based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
And when I think of I do a lot of personal development, and I've made the connection recently, because sometimes I'm listening to something or reading something, I'm like, this isn't really benefiting me. My executing wants to say that, right? Like, let's move on. But I realized, being a leader in doTERRA and coaching and mentoring, and also just the community that I have, that information that I take in, I can give back to encourage others to rise up. So when I think of that, when you're saying, how is your competitive drive? My competitive drive of wanting to be better, I think naturally goes out into those that I talk to. And maybe not even on purpose, but now that you are identifying it and I'm having to sit there and analyze it, I can see that.
Yeah, I love that you see how those two are just so cool.
Yeah.
I've got a book here that what this book is called Paired Up, and they give this to certified strengths coaches.
Okay.
They told me that it's not available anywhere. I don't know why. It's really not that big a deal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the combination of competition and analytical while I'm doing this. So just take a second. What I want you to do is kind of give me an example of what your mentor calls are like when you're, when you're working with one of your builders privately. What do those look like? What are your goals? What is your process and systems? You're an executor, which means that you love lists, right? Because I keep seeing you looking down, which tells me you had a list before you came to this interview. Is that right?
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. So like, how do all these processes, and then, you don't have to talk about competition specifically, but I'm curious about how you mentor other people being a high executor, what those processes look like.
Mm-hmm. So it really depends on rank, from lower ranks all the way up to silver. Mm-hmm. And well, actually, that's not true. Even my silver and gold still fill out. I have a form on Google Drive, and they each have their own that we use to mentor. And it basically is all the stats at the beginning of the month. So last month's stats paired next to this month's goals, because I can't help you move forward if I don't know where you're at, right? And I learned early on that not everyone's high executing. So when I used to start my mentor calls with "How's your business going?" They're like, "It's great." But then I would like look at my back office and I'm like, "Oh, but it really isn't." So the easiest way to get around that conversation is to just look at the numbers right away. Yeah. Then we come up with what 3 things they want to work on this week. And then we talk about anything that's holding them back, which oftentimes ends up being the majority of our call, right? Because numbers are easy to go through. 3 action steps you're going to take this week to help you get to your goal. But then what's not working, right? And that tends to be where I can see my relator comes in and helping them with mindset, things like that. So I would say it's like a culminate of like both things, right? Numbers and mindset and goals.
Okay, so I'm going to read to you the combination of competition and analytical.
Okay, I'm ready.
Right, so this is kind of cool. So basically what they do is I'll take 2 strengths and they create these like short phrases that kind of describe them. All right, here it is. Competition and analytical. For me, victory can't be confirmed by emotions. The proof of a real victory is found in scores or metrics.
So true. That's why numbers are my love language.
I love it.
So if you want to get my attention, it's like numbers. Like when my account manager called me with specific numbers, I was like,
okay,
those sit with me.
So I want people who are seeing, hopefully everybody is seeing this in the positive of it, because for you, one of the things I love about executors is they're more concerned about people getting what they want than those people liking them.
Yes.
Right. So like, that's a fair statement. Brooke cares more about the people in her business getting what they want.
Yes.
Right. Which is making money, having improved health, and building community and connections.
Yes.
Brooke is more concerned. See, I'm speaking to you in the third person, right? Brooke is more concerned about those things than people liking Brooke.
Yes.
Okay. 100%. What I want people to understand is that is how, well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'm just going to ask you this question. How is that when you're dialing it up to like level 10 on those things, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to think about, how is that your version of love?
Because at the end of the day, right, my goal is to help people get what they want. So if they're getting what they want, that's how I show love, right? Is helping them, where it's different. And this used to be a hang up for me when I first read my strengths. I kind of had FOMO because I didn't have a lot of relationship in my top 10. And it wasn't until I really dialed into relator and saw that as my anchor strength that I started understanding I connect with people differently than maybe someone whose relationship does. But the way I connect and show my love and show my affection is by helping you get what you want. It's just in a different way.
Yeah. And I want people to know that's the massive value you bring. You're going to make sure they get what they want. And the more you are focusing on the data and the metrics, it's letting them know that that's how much I care.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So let's get to your, we're going to go really fast on your bottom strengths so everyone understands why these need to be let go. And then and then we're going to wrap up our conversation. All right. And thank you. This has been so good. And I love how people are going to be exposed to how people have different versions of what love is, and to understand that there may be, people who are warm and people who are cold. But the fact is that if we look at the people who are being labeled as cold as being warm, and we look at all their actions, man, our opinions of them shift. And thus we'll work with them more efficiently. And so for you, Brooke, let's take a look at the bottom ones so we can help people understand what Brooke needs to stop being in order to be the highest version of love she can be. You can be, right? So number 30.
Adaptability.
Okay, so adaptability is just being, is just being in the moment, right? Without setting any kind of goals or anything about the future. It's really just about being in the moment. All right, and 31.
Woo.
Okay, being like super charming and entertaining, right? To be that would be de-energizing for you. Is that true?
100%. And I can say it because I used to try it before I realized it was in my bottom 5. You
used to try to be likable.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. Where your likable comes from is responsibility and relator. I want to talk about this just briefly. Okay, I'm going to give you more props. Relators connect very deeply with a very small group of people, very deeply. Like it's in like, the way my wife has it too, and I don't have it. So it's amazing to me that you can do this, where you connect with a person as if there is a rope between your actual heart and theirs.
Yes.
And everything that affects them instantly affects you.
Yes.
Right. 100%. And then responsibility is focusing on truth, focusing on facts and loyalty. Right. So when we put those together, right, woo and responsibility, relator and responsibility, this is your woo strength.
Yeah.
This is where you become charming. I want you to, what does that mean to you to be a deep connector who is all about loyalty? And how is that charming?
It wasn't until I realized that that I was able to move forward in my business, because sorry, I have something in my throat.
It's okay.
When I looked at, and we get to my 34, my 30 woo, and then my 34th. For a while, I was under the impression doTERRA is a relationship business, and I needed to have these certain strengths to be successful in this business. And not only did I not have them in my top 10, but they were literally in my bottom 5. No, I actually have 3 in my bottom 5 that I thought were necessary to go all the way in doTERRA, to go to Diamond. And it wasn't until I started looking at my top 5, and especially relator, when I looked into it, I'm like, that is so me. And responsibility, and the people that I connect with forever, right? For the most part. And I think that's why I do have an amazing culture within my community, is because of that. And I've also learned that I may not be a huge influencer on social media, because I connect better one-on-one. I like to look at people. I like to talk to people. I like to know things and ask questions. And refocusing my business on what energizes me really is what helped me pick up and keep moving forward.
Okay. So I'm loving this. I'm looking at the responsibility and relator connection. Okay. Now, when we're looking at, this is one thing I want to teach people, is how to realize that your bottom strengths are actually, you do have them, but they're in your top strengths. And in this case, we're connecting 5 and 1, which I always tell people, work on 5 and 1. Responsibility and relator. The longer I serve customers, colleagues, or friends, the more I am likely to appreciate them, and the more they are likely to appreciate me. In other words, that's how I woo.
So true.
Okay. So 32.
Ideation.
Okay. So people of low ideation are de-energized by believing that they have to do something that's never been done before. They have to think outside the box. They have to recreate the wheel. Yeah.
Don't want to do that.
That's a draining process for you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And 33.
Not productive.
33.
Includer.
All right. And then 34.
Empathy.
All right. So on that last one, to feel the feelings of another person, like we talked about before, metrics and measurables. It's not a measurable thing.
Right.
Right. For you, it feels like, or it sounds like to me, and you can just clarify this or explain this, and then we'll go to the last question. The feeling I'm getting is that empathy, to feel the feelings of another person physically, would be like a non-productive process.
Yes.
So is that line up with you? Is that true? Does that feel right?
It does, because my strengths want to have metrics or background information or facts or whatever it might be. I normally need more information. So just to feel the feelings and not know everything else, and whether or not, and it's not to say that those feelings aren't right. It's just, it's draining for me, because then it's all the what ifs, right? Well, is it this? Is it this? What about this? What about that? And it's just, it's not productive for me, and it's draining.
And so to be one of your leaders or one of your children or your spouse, to say, Brooke, I just need you to feel me right now. You're going to say, then you're asking me to be the opposite of who I am, which will not help you get what you want.
Yes.
Okay. Massive, like that's a phrase you could use. You know, look, if that's what you want from me, it's not going to be productive for me or you.
Yes, and I'm not going to be very authentic trying to feel your feelings, because it's draining me.
Right. Okay. All right. So awesome. I'm having so much fun. Thank you so much. And we're over a little bit on time, but I mean, we could talk about so many wonderful things about you. We really got just a little bit.
Not yes, but we could talk.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So last question, Brooke, I want you to go back in time and think about a time when, things weren't going well. And people of all high responsibility do this all the time. When things aren't going well, the high responsibility person will always take full responsibility for what went wrong. Always. Even if they had a little to do with it or nothing, doesn't matter. They take full responsibility. And then that leads you to feeling like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I'm broken, maybe I need to be something I'm not, and so on. Now that we've spent some time loving on some of your strengths and loving on who you are, what advice if you could go right back in time and say, and talk to that Brooke and look her in the eye and say something to her in those moments, what would you tell her?
I've thought about that a lot, and I think responsibility is almost something I don't have to think about, right? It's something that I carry all the time with me in all areas of my life. And I would go back to that Brooke and say, it doesn't stop at responsibility. Like, take the time to get to know who you are and your other strengths, so that you can stay in your lane. What is yours to keep and what is yours to give, right? Because it's not always my responsibility. And when I think of the basement of responsibility too, it's taking on too much and not having boundaries. And that was me the first few years of building my business. And I wish, and I would take on the responsibility for people who said they were going to do the business, and I believed them and they fell out, right? And that happens in this business, but I would carry it, and I would go back to that person and say, that is not yours to carry. But we don't really know what is our responsibility to carry and not carry until we have a really good understanding of who we are and what we were made to be.
Okay. All right. One last thing. Like, I want you to imagine Brooke is right in front of you right now. And I'm just, don't even look at me. Just look at your camera. Okay. And Brooke is right there, and she's brokenhearted, and she's lost, and she's feeling like she's the failure, right? One sentence advice. Go for it.
Oh my gosh, that's so hard.
Just be direct. Tell her the truth.
I'm like, I can't. I'm like trying to process. you are more than enough and you have everything you need.
Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Brooke Elia. Woo! Woo! Yes, that was amazing. Well done. Oh my gosh, that was so cool. Thank you so much.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that was great.
This was awesome.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say thank you so much. Thank you for bringing so much light to strengths, because like I said, I'd been introduced at the very beginning, didn't pay a lot of attention, and right when I started diving into it is when you started your group and your coaching, and it has just brought so much energy and light to me and to my team. I can't imagine where I would be had I not fallen in your path when you first started. So thank you, and thank you for this opportunity, Eddie. You're incredible.
Thank you, my friend. All right, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was an amazing interview with the Strengths of Diamonds experience. I hope you got took a lot of notes and got a lot of value from it. Please continue to share this missions with other people. Share this website when you get a chance so we can help other people get exposed to the truth about building this business your way. It's out there. So thank you again, Brooke. You're wonderful. And everybody have a wonderful day. We'll see you all in the next interview. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eddie.